December 24th, 4:30 p.m., Charlotte, North Carolina. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Jenkins & Associates law firm, casting long shadows across the mahogany desk where I sat signing papers. My hand cramped after the 20th signature, but attorney Richard Jenkins kept sliding documents in front of me with practiced efficiency. "Last one, David," he said, tapping a finger on the signature line. "This updates the beneficiary clause for the mountain property." I paused, pen hovering over the paper. The Blue Ridge Lodge, Beth's sanctuary, our sanctuary. 3 years since cancer took her, and I still caught myself thinking in plurals. My phone buzzed for the third time in 10 minutes. Tyler's number flashed on the screen. I declined the call, just like I'd done with the previous two. 18 months of silence from him, and now, on Christmas Eve, he suddenly needed to talk. Jenkins noticed my hesitation. "Everything all right?" "Fine," I muttered, scrawling my signature. But it wasn't fine. The last time Tyler and I spoke, he'd asked me for $50,000 for what he called a can't-miss startup opportunity. When I'd said no, actually said no for the first time in years, he'd hung up on me. That was June of last year. Since then, nothing. No birthday call in September, no text on Thanksgiving, not even a message on the anniversary of Beth's death. Jenkins gathered the papers into a neat stack. "You know, David, I have to ask, with Tyler's financial history, are you certain you want to keep him as a beneficiary?" My jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" He pulled out a folder I recognized, one I'd asked him to compile 6 months ago. "In the past 6 years, you've transferred approximately $470,000 to your son. That's not counting the original down payments on his apartment and car." The number hit me like a punch. I'd known it was bad, but seeing it in black and white made my stomach turn. Jenkins continued, his tone careful. "He's also accrued $87,000 in personal debt across 3 banks. His credit score is in the low 500s. And according to the employment verification we ran, he's been terminated from 7 different positions in 6 years. 7 jobs. The longest he'd kept one was 11 months, and that was only because the company went bankrupt before they could fire him." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "Because when you pass, everything goes to him. This lodge, your investment accounts, the rental properties in Asheville. We're talking about an estate valued at just under $3 million. Jenkins leaned forward. "David, I've seen what happens when someone with poor money management inherits substantial assets. It doesn't end well." I stared at the folder, at the spreadsheet summarizing 6 years of automatic transfers. Every first of the month, apartment rent, car payment, insurance premiums, credit card minimums, a $2,000 allowance, like clockwork. Like breathing. "He's my son," I said quietly. "I promised Beth." "Beth asked you to take care of him," Jenkins replied gently. "There's a difference between taking care of someone and enabling them." The words stung because they were true. But I signed the papers anyway, keeping Tyler in the will. Because what else could I do? He was all I had left of the family Beth and I built together. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Tyler, Dad, I really need to talk. It's important." I pocketed the phone without responding and headed for the parking garage. I had a 4-hour drive ahead of me, and I'd be damned if I'd let Tyler ruin my Christmas like he'd ruined everything else this year. The interstate gave way to winding mountain roads as the sun began its descent behind the Blue Ridge peaks. This drive was muscle memory now. Every curve, every landmark a familiar friend. The BBQ shack that made Beth's favorite pulled pork. The gas station where we'd always stopped for terrible coffee and surprisingly good apple fritters. The scenic overlook where we'd pulled over during that first trip up, back when the lodge was just a dream sketched on napkins. 15 years ago, Beth had spread a map across our kitchen table, her eyes bright with possibility. What if we built something, just for us, somewhere the world can't reach? "You mean like a vacation home?" I'd asked. "No. She'd shaken her head firmly. Not a vacation home, a sanctuary, a place where we remember what matters. It took us 3 years to find the perfect plot. 8 acres of dense forest with a creek running through it and mountain views that stole your breath. Another 2 years to build the lodge, mostly by ourselves with occasional help from contractors when the work got too technical. Beth had insisted on river stones for the chimney, spending weeks walking the creek bed to find the perfect ones. I'd complained about my aching back and she'd laughed and called me soft. "It needs to be perfect, David," she'd said, fitting another stone into place. "This is where we'll grow old together." We'd had 7 years there, 7 perfect years of weekend getaways, of autumn leaves and winter fires, of Beth curled up in her favorite chair reading while I pretended to work on my laptop. She'd named every room: the sunrise bedroom, the stargazing loft, the storytelling den. The lodge had been alive with her presence. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe 8 if the chemo worked. It didn't. The last time I'd carried Beth up to the lodge, she'd weighed 93 pounds. The cancer had hollowed her out, leaving behind someone I barely recognized physically, but whose spirit remained stubbornly intact. We'd sat on the deck together, wrapped in blankets despite the August heat, and she'd held my hand with surprising strength. "Promise me something," she'd whispered. "Anything." "Tyler. He's going to need you." My throat had tightened. Tyler had been 29 then, already on his 3rd job in 2 years, already asking for money every other month. "I know. I'll take care of him." "No." Beth had squeezed my hand. "Listen to me, David. Help him grow up, not just grow comfortable. There's a difference. Promise me you'll teach him to stand on his own feet, even if it's hard, even if he gets angry. Promise me." "I promise," I'd said, but I hadn't kept that promise. In the 3 years since Beth died, I'd done the opposite. Every time Tyler called with a crisis, and there were many, I'd fixed it. Maxed out credit card, I paid it. Lost another job, I covered his rent until he found the next one. Rear-ended someone without insurance, I wrote the check to make it go away. I'd told myself I was honoring Beth's wish to take care of him. But deep down, I knew the truth. It was easier to throw money at Tyler than to confront him. Easier to be the hero than the bad guy. Easier to pretend everything was fine than to admit I was raising a 32-year-old child. The familiar wooden sign appeared in my headlights. Morrison Sanctuary, private property. Beth had carved those letters herself, spending 3 weekends with wood-burning tools until she got it exactly right. I turned onto the gravel driveway, eager for the solitude I desperately needed. This year had been brutal. 3 major real estate deals had collapsed, taking my commission and my reputation with them. I had clients threatening lawsuits, partners questioning my judgment. I needed 4 days of absolute silence to clear my head and figure out my next move. But as my truck rounded the final bend, my headlights caught something that made my foot hit the brake hard enough to send gravel spraying. 3 vehicles sat in my driveway. My heart hammered as I put the truck in park, leaving the engine running. The vehicles were unfamiliar: a white Honda Pilot with Florida plates, a silver Toyota Camry, and a red Jeep Cherokee with a university parking sticker on the back window. None of them belonged here. Through the lodge windows, I could see warm light spilling out into the December darkness. And worse, I could hear music, laughter, the unmistakable sounds of people inside my home. The spare key lockbox hung open on its hinge beside the front door, the digital keypad dark. Someone had used the code, and only one person besides me knew that 6-digit combination. I killed the engine and sat in sudden silence, my mind racing. Squatters? Impossible. We were 20 minutes from the nearest town. Break-in? But how would they know the alarm code? The security system would have called me immediately if someone had forced entry. That left only one possibility, one that made my chest tighten with a feeling I couldn't quite name. Betrayal? Anger? Or something worse, the cold realization that I'd been a fool? I approached the front door slowly. The music grew louder, some pop song I didn't recognize. Through the window, I caught glimpses of movement, shadows of people I'd never seen before treating my sanctuary like their personal party venue. The heavy oak door stood slightly ajar, warm air escaping into the winter night. I pushed it open. 8 people occupied my living room, and not one of them noticed me enter. They were too absorbed in their celebration. Champagne bottles, expensive ones I'd never bought, littered my coffee table. Someone had rearranged my furniture to accommodate their group. Decorations hung from the mantel, gaudy Christmas ornaments that clashed with Beth's carefully chosen rustic aesthetic. But what made my hands curl into fists was the fireplace mantel. Beth's favorite photo of us, taken the day we finished building the lodge, both of us covered in sawdust and grinning like idiots, had been shoved to the corner, nearly hidden behind a ridiculous oversized ornament of Santa on a surfboard. The group ranged in age. An older couple in their 60s sat on my leather couch, dressed like they were attending a country club dinner. A younger woman, maybe late 20s, stood near the kitchen with a wine glass in hand. 2 younger men, one in his 20s and another closer to 40, were deep in conversation by the bookshelf. Everyone looked comfortable, at home, in my home. And so I told him, if he can't commit to the investment timeline, one of the men was saying. Then I saw him, standing by the fireplace, silhouetted against the flames, holding a glass of what I immediately recognized as my bourbon. Not just any bourbon, the 25-year-old Pappy Van Winkle that Beth had given me for our last anniversary. The bottle I'd been saving. The bottle that represented my last gift from her. The young man raised the glass to his lips, and that's when he saw me. Time seemed to stop. Tyler Morrison, my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised and supported and loved and enabled for 32 years, froze with the glass halfway to his mouth. His eyes met mine across the crowded room, and in that moment, I watched several emotions flash across his face in rapid succession. Shock. His eyes widened and the color drained from his face. Panic. He glanced at the door, at the people around him, calculating distances and escape routes. Then something else. Something that made my blood run cold. His expression shifted, hardened. The panic disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. His jaw set, his shoulders squared, and when he finally spoke, his voice carried none of the warmth I'd spent a lifetime hoping to hear. Instead, it dripped with venom I didn't know he was capable of. What's a parasite like you doing in my place? The word parasite hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, my hand instinctively reaching for the doorframe to steady myself. Beth used to call me her rock. Tyler, when he was young, called me his hero. Now I was a parasite. The party atmosphere died instantly. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Wine glasses froze in air. Every head turned toward us. The young woman I'd noticed earlier, petite, dark-haired, pretty in that wholesome way, immediately moved to Tyler's side. Her body language screamed protection as she placed herself slightly in front of him. "Tyler, what's going on?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Who is this man?" The casual way she asked the question, as if I were truly a stranger, as if I hadn't spent 3 decades of my life raising the man standing beside her, made my stomach drop. How long had Tyler been lying to these people? How deep did the deception go? The older couple exchanged worried glances. The distinguished-looking man with graying temples leaned forward in his chair, while the elegant woman beside him, silver hair perfectly styled, pearls at her throat, touched her husband's arm with obvious concern. "I have no idea who this crazy old man is," Tyler continued, his voice gaining strength as he played to his audience. "Someone must have given him the wrong address. Sir?" He looked directly at me with eyes that could have belonged to a stranger. "You need to leave before I call security." Crazy old man. My own son was calling me a crazy old man in front of strangers, denying my very existence like I was some delusional vagrant who'd wandered in from the cold. I found my voice, though it came out rougher than I intended. "Tyler." The name felt strange on my tongue after 18 months of silence. "What are you doing here? How did you even—" His eyes flashed with something that might have been fear, quickly masked by renewed aggression. "I don't know how you know my name, but that doesn't give you the right to break into my house." My house. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. This was my sanctuary, my refuge, my memorial to Beth. Every stone in that fireplace, every beam in the ceiling, every carefully chosen piece of furniture represented years of planning and love and hope. Your house? The question came out barely above a whisper. That's right. Tyler's voice grew louder, more confident, as he fed off the supportive presence of his companions. This is family property, and you're trespassing. I suggest you leave before things get unpleasant. The dark-haired woman nodded emphatically, pulling out her phone. Tyler's right. We should call the police. The older man, who'd been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. His voice carried a slight Hispanic accent and the authority of someone used to being heard. Preston, wait a moment. He gestured toward me with obvious confusion. How does this man know the security code? You said only family had access to this place. Robert's question hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. I watched Tyler's face carefully, saw the flicker of panic return before he could suppress it. He must have been watching the house, Tyler stammered, gesturing vaguely toward the windows. These mountain areas have problems with people like him, drifters, homeless people. He probably watched me enter the code from a distance. Robert's eyebrows rose skeptically. Memorizing a 6-digit code from across a dark driveway in winter? Even Tyler seemed to realize how ridiculous that sounded. The younger man, early 20s, athletic build, with the same dark features as the young woman, shook his head. That's impossible, man. The keypad doesn't even light up until you're right in front of it. But Tyler wasn't finished digging himself deeper. His voice took on a rehearsed quality, like he was reciting a story he'd told before. This is my family's mountain property. I inherited it from my grandfather 2 years ago, just before he passed away. The elegant older woman, who I now realized must be the dark-haired woman's mother based on their similar features, tilted her head with confusion. Tyler, you've never mentioned a grandfather or any inheritance. In the 2 years we've known you, you've never said a word about this place. Tyler didn't even blink. We weren't close. My grandfather, Thomas Morrison, was estranged from the family for most of my life. He made some bad decisions when I was young, hurt a lot of people, but before he died, he wanted to make amends. This lodge was his way of apologizing, I guess. I listened in stunned silence as my son fabricated an entire narrative. Thomas Morrison, my father, had died when Tyler was 12. We'd been very close. Tyler had cried for a week. He left you property worth what, $500,000? The young man asked, and you never mentioned it? It's complicated, Brandon, Tyler said, and the familiarity in his tone suggested these people knew him well. Family stuff, I didn't want to get into it. The young woman, his wife I realized, seeing the rings on her finger, touched his arm supportively. Tyler wouldn't lie about something this important, would you, honey? Tyler looked at her with what seemed like genuine affection, and for a moment, I glimpsed the boy I'd raised, the boy who'd helped me plant oak saplings outside these windows, the boy who'd promised Beth he'd make her proud. Then his eyes met mine, and that boy vanished behind cold calculation. This crazy old man is obviously trying to run some kind of scam, Tyler announced, pointing at me. Probably read about property inheritances in the news and decided to target us. Sir, his voice hardened, I'm going to count to 10. If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the cops. I'd stayed silent long enough. The words came out before I could stop them. I'm his father. The effect was immediate. Brandon's eyes went wide. The elegant woman's hand flew to her mouth. Robert sat forward in his chair, studying both our faces with new intensity, probably searching for family resemblance. The hell you are, Tyler spat, but his voice had lost its confidence. I stepped further into the room, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. This is my house. I built it 15 years ago with my late wife, Elizabeth. Every beam, every stone was chosen by us. The foundation was laid in May 2009. That chimney, I pointed to the river stones Beth had spent weeks selecting, took us 3 months because my wife insisted on stones from the creek below. That photograph. I walked to the mantel and picked up Beth's picture, the one that had been shoved aside. My hands shook as I held it. This was taken the day we finished construction, August 17th, 2010. She died 3 years ago, in this room, in my arms. The silence was absolute. Brandon spoke first, his voice slow with realization. Lawson, Morrison is your last name too, isn't it? He looked at Tyler. You said your last name was Morrison, same as his. Tyler's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. His confident performance was collapsing like a house of cards. It's a common name, he managed weakly. There are thousands of Tyler. The young woman's voice cut through his desperate babbling. Her face had gone pale, and she was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. Is this man really your father? No. Tyler's denial sounded hollow even to his own ears. Carmen, I don't know what kind of sick game this is, but then calling the police should clear this up quickly, Robert said, his tone now carrying an edge of authority. He was a man used to getting answers, and he clearly didn't like what he was hearing. Carmen was already reaching for her phone, her movements sharp with anger and confusion. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm calling them right now. As she lifted the device to her ear, I caught Tyler's expression. The mask had finally fallen away completely, leaving behind something I recognized from his childhood, the look of a boy caught in a lie so big he couldn't find his way out. But there was something else there too, something that made my stomach turn. Not regret, not shame, just cold calculation, like he was running through scenarios, weighing his options, trying to find an angle that would let him escape consequences one more time. The familiar ringtone filled the silence as Carmen spoke to the emergency dispatcher. Tyler stood frozen, probably realizing that in about 10 minutes every lie he'd told these people would be exposed by official documentation. The wait for the police felt eternal and instantaneous at the same time. Nobody spoke. Brandon had moved to stand beside his parents, the family unit closing ranks. Carmen stood apart from Tyler, phone clutched in her hand, her jaw set in a hard line. Tyler remained by the fireplace, drinking my bourbon like he needed it for courage. I stood near the entrance, not trusting myself to sit down. If I sat, if I relaxed even slightly, I might fall apart, and I couldn't afford that. Not yet. When the knock finally came, 3 sharp raps that made everyone jump. It felt like a bomb detonating. 2 officers entered, a stocky older man with graying hair and a weathered face that said he'd seen everything, and a younger woman, maybe mid-30s, with alert eyes that missed nothing. They positioned themselves where they could see everyone clearly, standard procedure for a domestic disturbance. I'm Officer Mitchell, the older one said. This is Officer Hayes. We received a call about a break-in and harassment. What's the situation here? Carmen stepped forward immediately, her voice trembling with anger and fear. This man, she pointed at me, broke into our house. He's been harassing my husband and making insane claims about owning this property. We've never seen him before in our lives. Tyler nodded vigorously, but I noticed his hands were shaking. He's some deranged stranger who's been stalking me, officer. I've never seen this man before. He's dangerous. The casual denial from my own son felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but I kept my voice steady and calm. I'm David Morrison. This is my property. I've owned it for 15 years. Officer Mitchell's eyes moved between Tyler and me, noting our shared last name. The coincidence was too obvious to ignore. Can you prove that, Mr. Morrison? Hayes asked, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. Yes, I have complete documentation in my truck. I just came from my attorney's office in Charlotte this afternoon. We were updating my estate papers. The folder is in my briefcase. Tyler's face went a shade paler, but he recovered quickly. Officer, he probably stole those documents somehow. Identity theft is a huge problem and— Sir, Hayes interrupted firmly. Let's see the documents first before we discuss how someone might have obtained them. The walk to my truck felt endless. Behind me, I could hear Tyler's voice growing more desperate as he tried to convince the officers I was some elaborate con artist. But I knew what was in that folder. 15 years of legal documentation that would end the charade. When I returned, Mitchell took the manila folder from my hands with professional courtesy and spread the contents across my coffee table. Hayes stood beside him, her flashlight beam tracking across each document. Property deed dated 2009, showing David Morrison and Elizabeth Morrison as joint owners. Tax records, 15 years worth, all paid by David Morrison. Homeowners insurance policies, building permits, every single one filed under my name. The final inspection certificate from when we'd completed construction. Even photographs of Beth and me during the building process, time-stamped and dated. Mitchell examined each document with meticulous care, his flashlight moving across official seals and signatures. The room held its breath as he worked. Finally, he looked up. These documents clearly showed David Morrison as the legal owner since 2009. His gaze shifted to Tyler with new interest. "Son, do you have any documentation showing your ownership of this property?" The color drained from Tyler's face. They're at home. I didn't bring them for a holiday trip." "You told us you kept important documents in the lodge safe," Patricia said quietly. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the cracks forming in her composure. "The safe," Tyler stammered. I forgot the combination." It was such an obvious lie that no one even bothered to challenge it. Mitchell carefully restacked the documents and handed the folder back to me with a nod of respect. "Mr. Morrison, I apologize for the confusion. Your documentation is clearly in order." He turned to survey the group who'd been treating my home like their personal party venue. "The question now is, what do you want to do about this situation?" The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. Mitchell was asking if I wanted these people, including my own son, removed from my property. After 18 months of silence, after being called a parasite in my own home, after watching Tyler lie to people who clearly cared about him, every pair of eyes in the room fixed on me, waiting for my decision. Before I could answer, Patricia stood up, her elegant composure cracking. "Mr. Morrison, please. We had absolutely no idea. We're so terribly sorry for this intrusion." Robert nodded emphatically beside his wife, his earlier authority replaced by genuine distress. "We would never have come here if we'd known the truth. Tyler told us this was his family's property, inherited from his grandfather, Thomas Morrison. He showed us photographs, documents." "All fake, apparently," Brandon said bitterly. Carmen's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a blade. "Tyler told me his father abandoned him when he was 5 years old." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually staggered backward, gripping the back of a chair for support. Carmen continued, her eyes fixed on Tyler with an expression that mixed betrayal with dawning horror. "He said you walked out on him and his mother, that he grew up in foster care, that he had to fight for everything he had because nobody was there to help him." "Foster care?" I couldn't keep the shock from my voice. "Tyler grew up in our home in Asheville. He had his own room, his own car at 16. He showed me pictures," Carmen interrupted, her voice rising. "Different houses, different families. He said he was moved around 7 times before he aged out of the system." Brandon pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Let me guess, none of those houses exist. None of those families are real." Tyler finally found his voice. "Carmen, baby, please. I can explain." "Explain what?" She whirled on him, eyes blazing. "Explain why you lied about your entire childhood. Explain why you told me you were self-made when your father was paying for everything. Explain why." She stopped abruptly, and I watched her face change as realization hit. "The business investment," she said slowly. "The $30,000 we asked my parents for, the tech consulting firm. Was any of that real?" Tyler said nothing. Robert stood up slowly, his face dark with anger. "What business investment?" Patricia's hands trembled as she pulled a folder from her purse. 2 weeks ago, Tyler came to us with a business proposal, a tech consulting firm. He showed us a detailed business plan, projected revenues, letters of intent from potential clients. "All fake," Brandon said flatly, still scrolling through his phone. "There's no company registration, no LLC filing, no website, nothing." Patricia continued, her voice breaking. "We were going to invest $30,000. We'd already transferred it to what he called an escrow account for the first phase. $30,000. These good people, because I could see in their faces that they were genuinely good people, had been prepared to hand over their hard-earned savings to my son based on lies. Robert turned to Tyler, his voice dangerously quiet. "Where is that money, Tyler?" Tyler's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. "Actually," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket, "let me show everyone what I've really been paying for." I opened my banking app, the blue glow of the screen casting shadows across my determined face. Months of automated payments appeared, a digital record of 6 years of enabling. The luxury apartment you live in, Tyler. Harbor View Complex in Charlotte, $29.50 a month. I pay that. Carmen gasped audibly. "You told me your salary covered our lifestyle." I scrolled through more transactions, each one a piece of evidence in the case against my son's lies. BMW 5 Series, $895 a month, plus the $15,000 down payment I made 3 years ago. I turned the phone toward the Williams family, letting them see the evidence. Robert's face went ashen. Patricia covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Health insurance, auto insurance, renter's insurance, all under my policies, all paid by me. I continued methodically, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. 3 credit cards in your name. Current combined balance, $38,500. I make all the minimum payments, $1,200 a month. Tyler, Carmen's voice was hollow. You told me you were debt-free. You said you'd worked hard to maintain perfect credit. The lies unraveled faster than Tyler could spin new ones. I watched him search for explanations that didn't exist, excuses that wouldn't come. Monthly allowance of $2,000 deposited every first of the month. Phone service, internet, utilities, $340 a month combined. Everything you need to maintain the illusion of independence. Hayes stepped closer, her cop instincts recognizing this was far bigger than a property dispute. The total, I said, letting the number hang in the air like a guillotine blade, comes to $7,065 per month. That's $84,780 annually for 6 straight years. Patricia made a sound like she'd been punched in the gut. That was more than many families earned in a year, and I'd been handing it to my son like pocket change. Brandon was doing math on his phone. That's over $500,000. $508,680, I corrected, not including the original purchases, furniture, security deposits, the car down payment. Carmen was staring at Tyler like he was a stranger. Who are you? Who the hell are you? But I wasn't finished. I needed them to see everything. And let me show you what else I found. I pulled up my recent texts with Tyler. 23 missed calls in the past week. Here's what the messages say. Dad, I really need to talk. It's important. That's from 4 days ago. Then yesterday. Please, I need money for something crucial. I looked at Tyler. Was the crucial thing the $30,000 from the Williams family, or was it something else? Carmen was searching through her purse now, her movements frantic. She pulled out Tyler's wallet. Apparently, he'd left it on the counter and started going through it. That's when she found it. A plane ticket, printed on cardstock, official and undeniable. Carmen's hands shook as she read it aloud. Bahamas, December 26th, 1 passenger. Her voice cracked. 1 way. The room went absolutely silent. You were going to leave, Carmen whispered. You were going to take that money and leave me. Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came. What could he possibly say? The evidence was overwhelming, damning, complete. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Or maybe I saw him clearly for the first time in years. This wasn't the boy who'd helped me build this lodge. This wasn't the son Beth had loved. This was a man I'd created through 6 years of enabling, of making everything easy, of shielding him from every consequence. I'd kept my promise to Beth. I'd taken care of Tyler. But somewhere along the way, taking care of him had become doing everything for him. I hadn't helped him grow up. I'd helped him stay a child. My thumb moved to the banking app's settings. Each tap was deliberate and final. Tyler, I said quietly, I made a promise to your mother. She asked me to take care of you, to help you become a man she'd be proud of. Dad, please. But I realize now, I didn't help you grow. I helped you hide from consequences, from responsibility, from reality. I tapped the screen. Apartment lease payment. Canceled. The electronic confirmation chime echoed through the silent room. Dad, no. BMW auto loan payment. Canceled. Chime. Credit card auto pay. Canceled. First card. Chime. Second card. Chime. Third card. Chime. Tyler's face went paper white. Dad, you can't do this. How am I supposed to? Insurance policies. All coverages canceled. Chime. Monthly allowance, canceled. Chime. Phone service, canceled. Chime. With each confirmation, weight lifted from my chest. The constant worry about Tyler's next crisis, the endless cycle of bailouts and broken promises, the gnawing fear that I was enabling him but being too afraid to stop. It was ending. Finally ending. Carmen was crying silently, her hands covering her face. Patricia had her arm around her daughter, her own tears falling freely. Robert stood with his hand on Brandon's shoulder, both men looking stunned. I closed the app and pocketed the phone. When I spoke again, my voice was steady and calm, perhaps the calmest I'd felt in years. Every financial support ends within 48 hours. No apartment, no car payments, no insurance, no allowance, nothing. Tyler sank into a chair, his face in his hands. Dad, how am I supposed to live? Where am I supposed to go? The same way everyone else does. You work, you pay your bills, you face consequences. I paused, then added the words that needed to be said. Your mother's last words to me were, help him grow up, not just grow comfortable. I failed her. I turned you into someone who could call his own father a parasite on Christmas Eve without flinching. The room was silent except for Carmen's quiet sobs. I looked at Officer Mitchell, then at the assembled group. Pack your belongings, all of you. You have 30 minutes to leave my property. The finality in my voice surprised even me. After 6 years of financial enabling, after 18 months of silence, after being called a parasite in my own home, I was finally drawing a line that couldn't be crossed. Tyler's mouth opened to protest, but no words came out. The confident mask had cracked completely, leaving only the face of a man who just realized his safety net had vanished forever. The Williams family stood in stunned silence, probably calculating how close they'd come to losing $30,000, money they'd worked double shifts to save, to my son's elaborate deception. Carmen looked between Tyler and me, understanding dawning that everything about their relationship had been built on lies. Officer Mitchell nodded slightly, a gesture of respect that acknowledged justice sometimes came in forms that had nothing to do with handcuffs or court dates. You heard him? Hayes said quietly. Start packing. Silence filled the lodge, except for zippers, rustling coats, and Carmen's muffled sobs. Patricia Williams packed with trembling hands, her elegant composure shattered. Robert worked beside her, jaw clenched with barely contained rage. We almost gave him everything, Robert muttered. Our entire retirement, $150,000. Patricia's voice cracked. I cleaned houses every weekend for 2 years. You drove Uber until 3 a.m. Every penny. For what? Brandon moved through the room mechanically, avoiding looking at Tyler. Carmen stood frozen, still holding that one-way plane ticket to the Bahamas, mascara streaking her face. Tyler stepped toward her. Carmen, please, let me explain. Don't touch me. I love you. I made mistakes, but I genuinely... The slap echoed like a gunshot. Carmen's palm connected with Tyler's face so hard his head snapped sideways. Don't you dare, Carmen hissed. Don't call me baby. Don't say you love me. Don't speak to me ever again. She yanked off her wedding ring and threw it at his chest. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, then pressing charges for fraud, identity theft, whatever the prosecutor tells me. You're not my husband. You're a criminal. She turned to her mother, voice breaking. Mama, I'm so sorry. I brought him into our family. Shh, mija. Patricia pulled her into her arms. This isn't your fault. You fell in love with someone who doesn't exist. Brandon approached Officer Hayes. We want to press charges, wire fraud. We have all the documentation. There are other victims too, he added, phone in hand. I found 3 other business schemes he ran in different cities. Same pattern: gain trust, fake business, take money, disappear. Patricia looked at Tyler with something like pity. How many families did you destroy? Tyler said nothing, collapsed in the chair by the fireplace. Time to go, Officer Mitchell said firmly. At the door, Patricia paused. Morrison, thank you for stopping this before we lost everything. I hope you find peace here again. Robert shook my hand. You did a hard thing tonight, but you saved my family. Brandon looked at Tyler with contempt, then at me with respect. My parents are good people. He almost destroyed them. I hope prison gives him time to think about that. 3 cars disappeared into the December darkness. The sound of gravel faded until there was nothing but wind and crackling fire. Tyler and I were alone. Tyler stood slowly, moving like an old man. When he reached me, tears streamed down his face. Dad, please. We're still family. You can't just cut me off. I'm not cutting you off. I'm letting you go. That's the same. No. Cutting you off means I don't care. Letting you go means I care enough to stop destroying you with my help. I was scared, Dad, terrified of failing. So you became a thief? You stole from Carmen's family, created fake businesses. We're planning to flee the country. I held up the plane ticket. This isn't fear. This is who you chose to become. I walked to Beth's photograph above the fireplace. Your mother asked me to help you grow up, not keep you comfortable. I failed her. I thought fixing everything was love, but I was preventing you from becoming a man. What am I supposed to do? I have nothing. No money, no job, nowhere to live. You have yourself, your choices, the same thing everyone has when they start taking responsibility. My phone buzzed. Credit cards declining, repossession notices, service cancellations, his life collapsing in real time. You need to leave now. Tyler grabbed his jacket with shaking hands. At the door, he stopped. I don't even have gas money. My hand moved toward my wallet automatically. 6 years of reflex. But I stopped. Call Carmen. Apologize and ask for a ride. Or call those officers you wanted here earlier. Tyler stood there waiting for me to crack, to pull out my wallet like always. I didn't move. He walked into the December night. I closed the door and locked it. The silence wasn't peaceful, but it was clean, final. Like after surgery, when healing can finally begin. December 31st, 11:45. 47 missed calls, text messages evolving from apologetic to desperate. Day 1, Dad, please call. I need help. Day 2, car repossessed, staying with Jake. Day 3, at motel, last card maxing out. Day 5, Williams filed charges, federal wire fraud, could go to prison. Day 7, sleeping on Jake's couch. Please, nobody will help. I deleted each one unread. Then Carmen's message appeared. Mr. Morrison, Tyler showed up at 2 a.m. pounding on our door. While we waited for police, he accessed my bank account and tried to withdraw $8,000 using forged authorization. I'm pressing charges, bank fraud plus the $30,000. Prosecutor says 5 to 10 years federal. I'm sorry, but I can't let him hurt anyone else. Carmen. Another from Patricia Williams. FBI contacted us. 3 other families filed complaints. Jacksonville FL, $45,000. Savannah GA, $38,000. Charleston SC, $52,000. Combined, over $200,000. FBI building federal case. Prosecutor asked if you'd testify about Tyler's financial history. These families deserve justice. One Florida wife worked 3 jobs for daughter's college fund. Patricia and Robert. 4 families, $200,000. Systematic predator. My phone rang. Unknown number. 11:47 p.m. I answered. Dad, don't hang up. Tyler's voice sounded destroyed. I waited silently. I'm in county jail. Federal agents arrested me this morning. Wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, multiple counts, 4 states. Dad, I'm looking at 10 years. Snow began falling outside the window. I deserve this. I hurt you, Carmen, all those families. I'm everything you think I am, but you're all I have left. Carmen's gone. Her family has restraining orders. My public defender says I should plead guilty and pray for mercy. Silence. I'm so sorry. For everything. The lies, the stealing, calling you a parasite. You're the best father anyone could have, and I destroyed it all. For once, the apology sounded genuine. Could you maybe hire me a real attorney, someone who could negotiate 5 years instead of 10, or post-bail, 50,000? If I could get out, I could start fixing things, get a job, pay people back. There it was. Even from jail, facing 10 years, the apology led to money. No. Dad, please. Tyler, I spent 32 years being your safety net. Every time I caught you, I prevented you from learning to stand alone. Your mother warned me. I didn't listen. I'll change, I swear. Maybe, but that change has to come from inside a cell, not from me bailing you out again. For the first time in your life, no one will save you. 10 years. 4 families. $200,000. That nurse in Florida worked 3 jobs to save for her daughter's college. You took $45,000 from her. Did you think about her daughter, the future you stole? Heavy silence. You could testify for me. Tell them I had a good childhood, that you enabled me, that it's partially... No. I enabled your behavior, yes, that was my mistake. But fake businesses, forged documents, planning to flee, those were your choices. You're an adult. You knew what you were doing. So you're abandoning me? I'm letting you face consequences for the first time ever without anyone to save you. Tyler sobbed. I love you. Mom wouldn't want this. Your mother asked me to help you grow up, not stay comfortable. I finally understand. Dad. Goodbye, Tyler. I hung up, blocked the number, opened contacts, found Tyler's name, pressed delete, contact deleted. Goodbye, son. January 1st, 6:00 a.m. Sunrise painted the mountains gold. 18 hours of silence, the first real silence in 6 years. A cardinal landed on the deck railing, Beth's favorite spot. It looked at me, cocked its head, then flew toward the rising sun. My phone buzzed with emails. Patricia Williams, prosecutor confident Tyler will accept plea deal, 7 to 9 years, parole after 5, FBI traced money to Cayman Islands, getting our $30,000 back, thank you. Patricia and Robert Carmen's attorney, divorce finalized, Carmen starting nursing school, she doesn't blame you, thanks for opening her eyes. David Reynolds, Officer Mitchell, FBI found 6 families, $275,000 total. Tyler planned these scams 3+ years. Your testimony crucial. Trial March, likely plea February. You did right. Officer J. Mitchell. I opened my laptop, found Tyler's section in my will, cursor hovering over delete. I could erase him completely, but I edited instead. To Tyler Morrison, $1 and $1,000, proving deliberate disinheritance. However, if Tyler provides verified proof of 5 consecutive years of financial independence following incarceration, employment, no charges, all debts paid, he may petition for the Blue Ridge Lodge, not a gift, an opportunity for redemption if earned. A door left open, not a safety net, just possibility. Your move, son. I saved it and walked back to the deck. The cardinal returned, singing from a snow-dusted pine. 5 clear notes, then it flew away. For the first time since Beth died, I felt genuine freedom. Not absence of responsibility, but liberation from enabling. Freedom to let him face consequences because I loved him enough to let him fall and learn to stand. My phone stayed silent. Tyler would spend 7 to 9 years in federal prison. Miss his 30s, miss everything. It was harsh, painful, necessary, because sometimes love means stepping back, letting them learn to catch themselves. I raised my coffee to the sunrise. Happy New Year, Beth. I kept my promise. The cardinal sang again, 6 notes. Beth's approval settled over me. I'd done the right thing, even though it cost me everything.